Welcome back, everybody, to this week's episode of Enough. So happy to be back with you all and super excited to have a special guest, Mark Possis. Mark is a junior at the University of Minnesota and is studying both marketing and creative writing. He's an experienced writer, athlete, and choir singer. He's a Greek Orthodox Christian who attends St. Mary's Greek Orthodox Church in Minneapolis and enjoys hanging out with friends, reading and playing guitar in his free time. Me and Mark go a little ways back as we kind of grew up at St. Mary's together. And I'm so happy to have you here, reconnect, and just have you on the show, Mark. So thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm a big fan of the podcast. I listen to all of them. So
thank you.
It's an honor.
Oh, thank you. Honors all ours. Also, I want to give a quick shout out to those of you at the Y'all conference who recognized me and Stav a few weeks ago, or whenever this video will come out, maybe it's later on. Anyways, it was a really weird experience to have people recognize us, and it was just cool. So if you were one of those people, drop a comment, and good to see you. Anyways, so Mark's on the show today, and he DM'd us a while back and just was, talking about how much he loved the work, which was just a beautiful comment to receive. We love receiving those comments because oftentimes it feels like we're almost talking to no one, which is fine. Me, Stav, and Jojo get on these calls just to have fun anyways, but it's cool to see that our work is kind of paying off. And he expressed how he has written a few things and wanted to share with us, and I absolutely fell in love with it. So we're going to kind of talk about that and kind of his experience as an Orthodox Christian, kind of growing up, especially in his time as a young adult and throughout the world, as we've kind of talked about in many other episodes. But kind of for starters, I just mentioned that you were like a creative writing major. What kind of minor? Yeah, sorry. What led you to writing, and how has that become sort of a passion?
Yeah. I always grew up, English was always like my favorite subject. I always really enjoyed it, but I kind of wanted to do business in college, like marketing. I was really interested in it, but I also didn't really want to give up on the writing aspect, because writing is always like, it's kind of been how I like connect with God. Like I'll just kind of journal, I'll write stuff down. Like thoughts kind of disentangle when I'm writing. It kind of brings a sense of healing to me. So that was kind of a big inspiration to continue writing, but also for this piece, you know what I mean? It was a reflection on a lot of the things that I kind of struggled. It was kind of like stuff I wish I knew when I was just entering college. And I was looking for a while, a format to write it in. And then I finally, came back to the Screwtape letter format, which I'm sure we'll get into later.
Yeah, sure. And actually, just before we move on, you want to kind of explain what that format is and like what that looks like, so people aren't a little bit confused if they haven't read C.S. Lewis.
Absolutely. So there's a novel by C.S. Lewis, a really famous, almost theologian. He wrote, as you probably know, the Chronicles of Narnia, that series, but he was also a very famous Christian writer. He wrote one of the more famous books called Mere Christianity. He has a couple classics, The Abolition of Man, and one called the Screwtape Letters, which is really interesting. I recommend it to a lot of people because, we often hear the perspective of goodness, but this is the total opposite perspective. So it's basically written in letter format, and it's written from a senior like demon, a spirit from hell, and he's writing to like a younger and experienced demon who's assigned to like a human. He's like, okay, this is how you're going to corrupt him. And it's step by step. It's really just, eye-opening to read, because I'm like, I've experienced this firsthand. You know what I mean? I've had those same thoughts and stuff. So it's a great read. And, I was reading it, and then I'm like, oh, I kind of want, there's not a chapter in here about college, and that would have really helped me. So that was kind of my inspiration to pay a little bit of homage to it, because C.S. Lewis was a big inspiration for me too. So
yeah, he's an incredible writer. And I just, want to repeat what you said, like C.S. Lewis, especially the Screwtape Letters. I haven't gotten into much other of his writings, but I want to, because it's cool, especially off the Screwtape Letters. But this book, especially, I read it I think senior year of high school. I just picked up. My dad always talks about it, and a lot of Orthodox priests talk about it in their sermons, because it is very Orthodox in essence, I think. But it completely shifted the way I think about the spiritual life, because we often talk, especially in Orthodoxy, about a spiritual warfare, but we don't know what that looks like. And so, like you were saying, these chapters are written in letter form, and it's this demon trying to counsel a demon and how to trick his person, I guess, that he's assigned. And like you said, it's like, oh, I've had these thoughts before. It's like the demon's like, okay, well, trick him with anger and put these thoughts in his head. And so it's like, it totally helps me realize the thoughts in my head, and made me realize that, oh, maybe those aren't my thoughts. Maybe I'm not as terrible as a person as I am. I'm still sinful. I'm still a sinner, but some of these thoughts aren't from me, but of the evil one, you know?
Yeah, I mean, my big thing for me is I realized like it's I mean, we know this, it's real. Like we're
Yeah.
under attack, and the devil wouldn't be attacking us if we were already on his side. You know what I mean? As Christians, we put on the armor of God and we go to war, and no matter what happens, we can do it. And it's beautiful. I wrote this piece because it was after a pretty tough time. So like, it was just beautiful to see that, you do overcome that. And
Oh, for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So,
Mhm.
but we're going to get into this piece later, but like
Mhm.
a lot, because I love it so much. But before we get in there, I would love to kind of hear, what has your, you know, experience been with with the church growing up? Has it always been a big part of your life? Have you struggled with it? What's that kind of looked like to you?
Yes, yes. Great question. I grew up, so I was kind of cradle Orthodox. I was
Mhm.
born into it.
Yeah.
My parents started taking me there from a really young age, was baptized at St.
Yeah.
Mary's. My parents were married at St. Mary's. And I always went to church.
Mhm.
Um, but I kind of hit a point where I was like, it became like everything to me, because I feel like I was kind of lukewarm before. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't the center, you know what I mean? It was just a branch on the tree. It wasn't like the trunks, the roots, you know what I mean? It wasn't what kept me grounded. And then I kind of hit a point where, you keep underachieving, like what is happening? Like, I don't know how to stop this. I kind of just realized I can't do this on my own. And then when I did I remember it vividly, it was sophomore year. And then I kind of came to, I'm like, I gotta get serious about my faith. Like it can't
Yeah.
just be something in the back of my mind. Like that's not how it works. Like, so when I did that, started taking it more seriously, believing and going to church and reading and, like I said, writing, that's when I started writing like that. It just was really healing, and it's beautiful because like when you do that, everything you were aiming for, like everything you thought was the end of the world, make or break, like that comes to you
Mhm.
when you fixate your gaze on him. You know what I mean? It's a
Yeah.
byproduct. And it's
Yeah.
like, you got to go for him, not just for like earthly success, just to know him, love him, and then all that other stuff will come. But like, it was just, yeah, it became really, really more like my life, I would say sophomore year, you know what I mean? Kind of getting serious about it. And then once again, after I read Mere Christianity in college, it just was a re-cementation of it. So yeah,
Yeah.
I was always Orthodox, but became serious for me at a couple points in my life. Mhm.
Yeah, well, thank you for
Mhm.
sharing that, because I feel, especially kids our age, we just live in a really weird time. It's hard to be a young adult. It's especially hard to be Orthodox because the world seems to be pushing us aside. Our beliefs are considered hateful. We're viewed as hateful people, sometimes bigots, stuff like that,
Mhm.
because they don't know the truth of our faith. And it's nice to hear other young adults share their story, because oftentimes we're all in the same boat. We oftentimes feel that maybe God isn't really there for me. Maybe he's not real. Maybe, or maybe I'm just not good enough for him. But it's encouraging to hear stories like yours, Mark, because it shows that one, we're all in the same boat, and two, that, by working towards our faith, by trying to learn about God, we can begin to see him. And as you said, your life just kind of is changed.
It has, like, it's like, I heard that analogy, you're pushing that boulder up the hill. You know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
sure you've heard this. You're like, oh, this is so hard. Like, I'm not seeing results. So I'm
Mhm.
coming to you, God. And then God says, look at your arms. You know what I mean? You're so much stronger now. And
Yeah.
it's kind of been like that. It's like, I'm so much further along than I was. And it's just by the grace of God, you know what I mean? Getting to know him, learning humility. I mean, that's the first step is, humbling
Yeah.
yourself and admitting I can't do this on my own, and having a faith in Christ that saves you from despair. You know what I mean? It's beautiful. And it's
Oh,
it's
for
always
sure.
there. It's just, we have an internal compass, you know what I mean? But the difference is, like, it's a compass that can choose, like we can choose our true north.
Mhm.
And that's Christ. And it's like, when
Yeah.
we do, it's so beautiful. I'm sure you know it firsthand, and it's really
Yeah.
amazing. I'm glad we get to like have these conversations. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's great.
Yeah.
And these are the conversations I encourage everyone listening. Like, if you don't often get to talk about your faith, like, try your best just to find an Orthodox person, just talk, because
Mhm.
you'll learn so much about yourself and the other person. And like we're saying, it's like, we're all in the same boat, and we just need to talk. We need to express how we're feeling in our faith. And then that can kind of jumpstart, hey, like, okay, I can go to the church. I can be a bit more comfortable talking to priests. I can be a bit more comfortable thinking of the idea of confession, then actually going to confession, and then the whole
Mhm.
cycle just begins.
Mhm.
But yeah, these conversations are great, and this is really the reason that we started this just to have conversations, and like people listening was just a cool plus, and some people like it. So it's fun and we keep doing them. But yeah,
I love it. I'm
yeah.
a fan. I'd buy a shirt. Yeah.
Maybe we'll make that into reality. We'll send you one, Mark. Well, you don't even have to buy one.
Okay.
So I would love to kind of get into your writing now. And so we said it was kind of I've tried to explain to people as your own chapter of Screwtape Letters. I don't know if that's the best way to describe it. That's how I internalize it. And so a lot of it, like you said, it was dealing with your experiences in college. And when I was reading, it was like, oh, this just seems like he's struggling with the college experience in a sense. And so before I kind of ask you about certain things that you wrote, I would love to ask you, did you feel like pressure to live the college experience or to go to a school with the college experience? Because I know, like, in my personal opinion, people were like, well, go to a bigger school, just live college, and then after that you can figure out. But like, to me, that always seems strange. So I like, we're like Christians, so we should kind of be called away from that in a sense. I don't know, that's my own thing. But did you ever feel pressure to live that college experience, to go to a college that had it, or so on? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I did. I feel like that's the general stereotype surrounding college, is like, it's going to be the best 4 years you'll ever get. And I kind of write in there, people confuse the best 4 years you're going to get with the wildest. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be unhinged lawlessness. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I was not prepared, because I was under just the belief I got to go in, I got to make all these friends, I got to fit in, I got to party, like I got to do all these things. And, when you go to a big school, like I'm at it's like one of the bigger schools in the country, it's like, it's so easy to lose sight of who you are. You know what I mean?
Right.
And,
yeah, it's kind of like a reset switch. You can be anyone or everyone, and no one will even question it.
I write in, just to, think about the chapter I wrote. I wrote in there, the demons are really excited by the transition to college, because, if you already have a Christian faith, it's going to be tested. You know what I mean? You gotta, this is when you're on your own. It's a monumental lifestyle change. And, it's just perseverance and putting your head down and continuing with the faith, I think, is a really big thing. Because I did, to circle back to the initial question, I did feel that stigma, like the college experience, like there's so much surrounding what college needs to be. And like, if it's not, I almost felt like a failure. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
there's that whole element.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. And you write one of my favorite lines in your whole little chapter, and I'll try to link the document to the YouTube somehow. So look in the description, people, if I can figure that out, then you'll have it. And I encourage you all to read it. But you put in there a sentence, and I read it and I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. And I don't know if this is the exact quote or just something similar, but it says, it's the demons talking and saying, we're not able to create pleasure that is from the enemy, and the enemy being God in this sense, right? And so it's saying that God is the only one can create true happiness. But like you're saying, that like the demons can create false sense of happiness in the partying, in just being drunk all the time, in trying to be everyone that you're, everything that you're not,
just being liked by everyone.
And you mentioned being liked by anyone, and that was like a big portion of this. It was, what was the kind of that struggle like? When you are an Orthodox Christian, maybe deep down you're supposed to be one person rooted in God. How did that affect you when you were struggling with trying to be just liked by everyone?
Yeah, I mean, when you fixate your gaze and what you're doing for the pleasure, like, of your peers, like only being liked by them, fitting in, it's like, I learned that well runs dry quick, and you quickly lose sight of who you are. You're seeking your validation, like, externally, and you're trying to, you're worrying about what other people, like, is in their heads, but like, that's something you can never know. And it's just, the demons love that. You're in a loop, you know what I mean? It's something that's beyond your knowledge. That was a struggle too, because I come in, obviously you want to make friends, you want to be liked, and you want to be popular, quote unquote. But I mean, it took some hard times to realize, like, that's not important. You know what I mean? When you stumble upon your faith, when you find your legs, which is what finding your faith is, it's like you find the truth, and you realize this is the only thing that's important. You know what I mean? This is essential. And you kind of just, I still struggle with things, but like, there's that knowledge in the back of your head, like, it'll be okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, you don't need to worry about that.
for sure.
You know, demons want you thinking about what man thinks of you, not what God thinks of you. But when you care just incomparably more what God thinks of you, you'll see other people. Like, it'll come naturally as a byproduct. Like, you're just pure. You're doing it whole for a pure intention, and it's a really lovely thing. You know what I mean? It's there's a great phenomenon that C.S Lewis talks about. It's just like, you don't go to God just for a personality or to be liked by people. It's like the same thing with social interactions. It's like, if you're worried about what kind of impression you're going to make, you're obviously not going to make a good one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you go to God just to know him, to get to know him and live as Christ, become a little version of Christ. And you just see everything else transform. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's absolutely. I've had similar experiences with that. And like you said, it's like when you begin to catch your feet, which is Christ, like you said, like, you know, you're struggling, but the struggling doesn't matter because you know it's there, but you know how to like deal with it. And it's really cool because you wrote another like mic drop line. Like, you could just highlight everything. Like, the whole page was highlighted, but this one especially, it was like double and triple highlighted. It was like, it says, keep his mind on itself so long he misses out on effortless joy. And it follows, which is in his grasp if he ignores our tactics. And you kind of touched on this. It's like so many times we don't ignore the demons. We don't ignore the sins in our life. We say, that is us. That is me. I am unliked. And that's what causes us to fall. But, you know, it's just taking ourselves to God, because God doesn't care where we're at. He just says, come to me.
Exactly. It's, I totally agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah. That line just stuck with me, because I feel like when it takes forever to realize that as truth, because, you know, like, I was listening to a speaker at the All Conference, and he was saying how you can only like connect the dots when you move forward. You can't connect them in the moment. So like, it feels like craziness right now with whatever you're dealing with. And you can only look back and say, oh, that's what that struggle is for. That's why I'm stronger now. And that's just, we don't realize that. And once we can grasp that, I think we can make so much spiritual progress. You know?
Exactly. It's grasping. Like, another thing is, I write in there, you know, the demons want your mind anywhere but the present moment. You know what I mean? I know I've felt that. I think I write a line in there. I mean, one side note is, like, usually writing's really, really fun, but this piece was a little different. You know, it's, it kind of self-exploits itself, and then you could write, I wrote like 12 pages and cut it down to like 5, but it wasn't like fun to write per se, because not only it was hard to look in the mirror, but healthy to look in the mirror. You have to think like a demon. It's just a bleak, lifeless lens you need to look through. So when I wrote the line, like, you know, when it's a hilarious treat for you to watch him beat himself up, and all you need to do is remind him of a rampant insecurity or an unfavorable memory. And like, that's what it is. Like, I find myself so many times like getting tripped up in the future or in the past, but the present, you know, this moment contains all moments. Like,
for sure,
this is where time touches eternity. So I feel like it's really, like you said, trying to connect dots in the moment. That's not going to happen. It's like, that's hindsight. Hindsight's 2020. Present moment is just, you got to just have faith, and faith is believing what you can't see. So,
yeah, it's funny. So you're talking about living in the present, and I don't know if you've seen the show Ted Lasso.
One of my favorite shows on
TV.
Okay,
cool. So I've been like a week behind with moving into school and stuff, but so I watched I think last Friday's episode yesterday when this was filmed, so it'll be way off when this actually goes live. But one of the last lines in this episode was Ted saying, living in the moment is a gift. That's why they call it the present. And I was just like, I have to share that because it's great. And it's so true, because, you know, we only experience true joy in the moment. And that's a big Orthodox thing that I've struggled with, because it's so hard to live in the moment, like you're saying.
It's really hard to the people listening. Like, it's people say live in the moment. It's like, that's not easy. People say it's so easy to just think like, oh, that's, people reduce it to, you know, it being trivial. It's not easy at all. But like, through a faith in Christ, you have the strength to keep going. Like, you can do all things through Christ. And it's just like, you know, even if you don't succeed at virtue, you know what I mean? Even attempting it brings virtue down the line. Attempted virtue even brings anything better. It's just like trying is what I find myself struggling with. But when you do, like you hear it all the time, but it's beautiful. And I'm working on that right now, even just getting going,
It's a constant cycle of work. It's really what it is. Yeah,
it is.
And I believe when we were emailing back and forth, you said this piece was being published nationally. Is that correct?
It is. It is.
Yeah. Could you tell us about that?
So I submitted it to Creative Writing Minor. They send out like little newsletters every couple weeks, I think once a month. And like outlets to be published. So I submitted it to a couple. Someone didn't take it, but then all of a sudden one, it's this thing, it's pretty new and it's student run. So it's not like super rigid, but I think it'll be coming either this fall or in the spring. It's called Loomings Magazine, Loomings, little spelling bee there. Loomings National Magazine. It's out of Long Island, New York, I think.
Okay,
so,
cool.
Yeah, it's being published there. They wanted stuff on the college experience and they liked it. So by the grace of God, I'm grateful for it.
It's absolutely incredible. I like I said, if I will do my best to figure out how to put this in the description. Like everybody needs to go read it. And this I think it was 6 pages, but it will literally like change your life. And also read C.S. I'm being serious, Mike. Like I loved it so much because, C.S. Lewis, the Screwtape Letters, when I first read it, was such a big impact. And I kind of forgotten all about it. And so when I reread this, I was like, oh yeah, I should probably go like pray about my whole life and like fix myself, like truthfully.
Thank you. Yeah, it's C.S. Lewis. I mean, I can't talk about him enough. You know what I mean? It's Mere Christianity. Like they did it for me. It's like he explains it so well. Like you hear the stuff all the time, like love your neighbor, but like, what does that mean? You know what I mean? Like, what is the essence of Christianity? How do we know it? I mean, what do Christians believe? He explains it perfectly and he gets it. And I think he's just been such a big inspiration to me and really just inspired me to keep writing. So I'm really glad you liked it. I hope the main reason I wrote it was so people wouldn't make the same mistakes I did. You know what I mean? It's meant for people coming into college, or if you're in college already, it's stuff I wish I would have, the lessons I learned essentially. And it's, I just hope I can give that to someone, you know what I mean? So thanks for having me on to like almost advertise it.
I'm so glad that we were able to make this happen. And I hope those listening have gotten just a little taste of, first off, who you are, what your writing is, and are encouraged and hopefully can read this. And I think just in closing, I think, Mark, maybe you can agree with this, but I think as we've kind of both struggled in our own ways, like just finding that God is enough is that stepping stone that can like push you forward. And then you can learn how to love your neighbor. Then you can learn how to do like the classic Christian, like, one-liners. Like they make sense when you know that God is enough. So and to all those struggling, just we're praying for you. You can get there and just remember that God is enough and he'll see you through. And we'll see you guys all next time.